Hi, welcome to the show. Today I've got Amy Blackwelder. That's Amy with an I, not Amy with a Y. You can find her at amyblackwelder.blogspot.com. And she's written a saga of books. This one's The Shifters of 2040. A very interesting saga about planet Earth. Welcome to the show. And tell me, how did you come up with this phenomenal idea, bringing in races and hybrids, and what a phenomenal concept. Tell me how you came up with it, and welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm Amy Blackwelder. I came up with the idea when I was in Thailand working as a teacher. I've worked overseas for 8 years as a teacher. And when I was there, I had a Siamese cat I took care of, and he would jump around the garden, and I would be gardening, and I'd see him jump up on the trees. And I just had a vision of that would be very interesting if he jumped and he morphed into a person. And that was the initial idea. And from that, I did a lot of research on shape-shifting and shifters, and I kind of thought about, okay, how could this world actually exist if it did exist? And so that's how aliens got brought into it. What if aliens came down and their DNA mixed, and that's how this could be possible? And so it kind of was born out of that seed. And then from there, just more research, a little bit of imagination, and, you know, writing, and then eventually you get to the point of a whole novel.
Eventually, Amy, you make it sound so easy. You were a teacher, but were you a writer before you went to Thailand?
I've always been a writer. In elementary school, my teachers would pick my stories and make me read them in front of class, and I've always been shy. I don't like getting in front of large groups of people, but they loved my stories, so I'd read them. And so, yes, I've always been. I majored in creative writing at school and teaching, and when I graduated, my idea was, okay, I would work as a teacher, my second passion, and my hobby would be writing, my first passion. And as I got older, I decided, well, hey, my first passion is writing. I should put a little more oomph behind it. And so I started really promoting my work in 2010.
Actually, there's some dark turns and twists in this novel. Do you have a dark side, Amy?
Right. I think that there's a dark side to life, and I've experienced a lot of dark in life. And so from that's where that comes from. I think out of that, I want to make people think about prejudice and hate, and war and death, and to think about how these things actually affect humanity. Because it's easy to say, oh, I knew this person who knew this. Oh, I saw this on the news. But when things happen to you, you start to realize that there's a lot more going on in life than, at first glance. So I kind of wanted the novel to be not just your basic romance, paranormal, ooh, cliche, oh, boy and girl fall in love, yay, yay. People have said my work, they call it reality fantasy, because they think, oh, there's a lot of fantasy, but there's a lot of raw reality to it too. And so that's kind of the blend that people have said that the genre that they kind of named me as.
Yeah, it brings in real life. Real life, like you said, it is dark and is light, and it brings it all in together under this fantasy sci-fi sort of umbrella. Right. Now, this is the third novel of Shifter Evolutions. Are there more? Is there 4 and 5, or are they in the works? Or tell me about continuing.
And I'm so glad you said it right. A lot of people say shifters evolution, and no, shifter is singular and evolutions is plural, because it's about the process that these shifters go through, which could be a process of any group of people, humans, any different culture that's been oppressed. It really represents, anybody. And there are 6 books to the saga. The first book is the Invasion of 2020. I'm 2 chapters away from finishing it, and then it'll go to my editor and be out in a month. The SCM of 2030, which stands for the Shifter Counterinsurgency Military, is going to be out at the end of this month. My editor's almost done with it. Book 3, The Shifters of 2040, is out now. The Hybrids of 2050, which a lot of people have been waiting for, is out now. The Hunted of 2060, which follows the children of Melissa Marn, is out now. The last book, The Revolution, won't be done until next year, though, because I'll be working on a piece about Tibet the rest of this year. So I'll finish that next week.
This is an incredible body of work. I have to interrupt you because just listening to all this writing that you have produced. It's so prolific. Tell me just a little bit about your writing process. Do you sit down every day and write, or does it come to you in the middle of the night? How do you go about getting all this down on paper?
A variety of ways. Sometimes I'm so moved in my dream when I wake up, I have to write something down. That's how one of my books was written, The Day the Flowers Died, an historical romance that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but that's how that came about. Some other books, I'll wake up and I'll have an idea about my character that I want to incorporate in the story. I'm like, oh, I have to write this down on paper before I forget it and go out and teach and deal with kids and then come home and completely forget. And so I'll write it down real quick on a paper. I come back and then I'll work on it a little bit more. A lot of times it just comes through my imagination, through watching other movies, through watching things in life, and then I'll have a seed of an idea. And you build upon that. With your own experiences and your own research and your own imagination. And yes, dreams too.
And I'd like to know about your typical day. Do you sit down and write every day at the same time, or do you wait until the muse hits you?
I generally try to write 3 chapters a week. Sometimes the muse will hit me and sometimes she's really far away. But I think that it's important to have it as a discipline, because if it's something that you love to do, it shouldn't be sporadic. It should be something that you treat like a little bit like a business and a little bit like, it can be work. It's lovely work, but so sometimes you have to sit down and force yourself to write, even though you don't feel like it. And I've read, stories about great writers like Steinbeck and Hemingway. They sit at their computer and they wrote the worst line ever, to the last part of their story, only to crumble it, throw it away, and write another one. And so sometimes that happens, and good writing can come out of bad writing. So there's nothing shameful about writing something bad. I would rather write something and try and then build upon it than do nothing. So yeah, there's a set schedule that I have. I usually try to write a couple days a week. There's not a set day, but I generally try to be inspired. And if I'm not inspired, at least try to get down a few times a day so I can do 3 chapters a week.
And do you edit as you go, or do you just write and come back and edit, or do you wait until the process is complete and then start editing?
I edit as I go. I think with my first novel, I wrote everything first. I found that really didn't work really well with me because I have so many changes as I'm writing. So my novels after my first novel, which was The Gate of Lake Forest, which is another book, since then I edit as I go. I'll write a sentence and then I'll go back. Okay, is that the right verb I want to use? And then I'll, look it up. Maybe this verb is better. And then, okay, how can I phrase that again? So I'll write a paragraph, go reread it again, and then change a little bit. And then I'll write a little bit more. And then when the chapter is fully done, I'll go reread it again. Okay, is that what I wanted? So I'll edit it a few times as I'm going through. And then after it's all done, I send it to an editor. She always has a lot to say. And, who is a writer without their editor? And then she'll send it back to me, and then I'll rewrite. And then sometimes I send it out to my friends, try to get a different point of view, because sometimes I'm really bad at seeing my own weaknesses and strengths. Of course, yeah. But other people can. So. Right.
And the last question about your process, because people are always interested, there's so many different writing processes. Have you laid out all the characters and the storyline, and do you storyboard it and write your chapters out before you start, or do you just sit down and write and let it evolve as you go?
I'm a little bit of both. I know some writers that have strict outlines, and I know some writers that have none at all. I usually have a general idea of where I want to start and where I want to end up, and usually something in the middle. But a lot of the details kind of come as I go, and I tend to have the names of the chapters in my head before I have anything else. I know exactly what I want the chapter to be about. And so I'll usually have 30, a sequence of 30 different chapters. And so when I get through, like, let's say I'm at chapter 15, okay, now I'm at chapter 16. What was this going to be about? Oh yeah, that's my title. Oh yeah, I was gonna work on that a little bit more, and then I will write that chapter. And then a lot of times, though, you have an idea in your head of something you want the character to do. One character was going to actually pass away, and as I was writing it, she just wouldn't pass away. She just kept going this other direction. Okay. okay, this character really wants to live, so she's going to have to, she has another story. And so this tangent line goes over somewhere else. And that's something a lot of readers have told me about this saga that they love so much, that there's so much, there's a plot and there are subplots. There's a lot that you can follow so you're not bored. And they said, oh, it's real page turners. That's always what I hear. Oh, I could read this, in one night. And so that's always a good feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much going on, so many subplots, so many tangents, but there is that core plot that carries it through. The book is The Shifters of 2040. You can get it on my link right underneath this video at talkingbookstv.com. It's book 3 of the Shifter Evolutions.
And you actually start with that book. It's built so that you start in the middle, and then you can either read the past or the future. Some people get confused about that, but you can
Great
actually...
point.
Yeah. Or you can read it chronologically.
Thank you. Great point. And you can find more about Amy at Amy Blackwelder. That's Amy with an I. amyblackwelder.blogspot.com. And I can't wait for your next book. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me.